Well, everyone, it's very, very often that I get to say I was right. I want to say I'm not always right, but I tend to be when it comes to cases like this. And once again, time has once again vindicated me. Tulsi Gabbard was a Democrat presidential candidate during the primaries back in 2020. Well, actually, it would have been 2019 and like early 2020. And she fucking sucked. She just absolutely fucking sucked. I was never a supporter of hers, nor did I ever like her very much. You can go back to my videos all the way since the beginning, which is around right before the primaries started, was when I started making left-wing content. Not too far off from that. Yeah, just overall, I was not a big fan of Tulsi Gabbard. Something about her messaging seemed off. You see, Tulsi, for a lot of lefties, almost seemed like a good second choice to Bernie. She was very populist, anti-establishment, that is to say, oftentimes invoked leftist-sounding ideas, very soft, but still kinda there to an extent. Ideas in her messaging. She really did seem like, to a lot of lefties, a possible good second choice to Bernie. If they were fucking stupid, all right? Now, I know I'm being mean to a few people who totally fell for Tulsi's grift. There are a few left-wing people, yeah, Seanhead's one of them, who fell for Tulsi's grift. And I'm not going to harp on the fact that I was one of the lefty figures that have for a while now talked about how Tulsi is not really left-wing. She's not a socialist. She's not a leftist. She is, in fact, just a populist conservative, a nozzle even, who is just using pseudo-socialist talking points as softened as possible to appeal to an anti-establishment, super populist right-wing fan base, while also still ingratiating herself with left-wing populists who will literally seal clap for anything that sounds even vaguely pro-worker, but not necessarily pro-worker, actually, more anti-rich person, right? Like it's the type of lefty that only ever harps on big tech and the fields of the aspects of large corporations that tend to be more left-wing. It seems less like an attempt to call out large corporations for hoarding their wealth and mistreating workers and, stealing their production value, stealing their valued productivity, right? The value of their work and their how am I blanking on this term? The socialist word for the value of the work that a worker produces. I was close. It's close to production value. What is the term? Any theory nerds in chat remember? No, not surplus labor. The fruits of their labor, right? To take it from. It doesn't really seem like it's a desire to stand up for workers, but instead an attempt to defend to attack corporations that are perceived as being woke, right? That's what the general nozzle vortex type of pseudo-socialism tends to do, and I've always kind of gotten that vibe from Tulsi. And things only got worse as more time passed. She started to side and shield more towards the Republicans, the more her chances of winning the Democrat primaries, started to fall. I never thought she had a good chance of winning. I don't think anybody really did, but once it became obvious she had no chance whatsoever, at least to her, she started to shill to the Republicans hard. And now we are here in 2022, where Tulsi Gabbard has now just full-on given up on claiming to be a Democrat or left-wing in any... Well, she's always said that she was a different kind of Democrat and whatnot, like a establishment Democrat. But now she's given up on the entire identity of Democrat and, frankly, identity of being left-wing. She is now working for Fox News, constantly appearing on there, and it's just become another right-wing mouthpiece. So, it all started when it really started, to become evident to most people, I think, when she started railing against the, trans people, and she started doing, the anti-trans, turfy shit. I think that was the first big sign for a lot of people she was going to start shilling to the right, and, all the rest of it just kind of followed that. So, here we got a nice little video. Tulsi Gabbard on why she left the Democratic Party. Let's hear it, Tulsi. Tell me why you were totally a left-winger your whole life, but you decided that all of the things the left stands for are actually wrong. It's time to join the Republican Party. It's time to be part of the right. They're the ones who actually have the best interest of the American people at heart. Let's hear it, Tulsi.
Tulsi Gabbard joins us now to explain more. Good to see you, Congresswoman. I don't know if you still want to be called Congresswoman, but thanks for being here. Let's talk first about the reaction of your fellow Democrats.
Okay, I'm also going to say this. A non-zero amount of Tulsi supporters are just horny. A non-zero amount of Tulsi supporters are simply horny.
To your announcement, what's the reaction been?
I got to be honest, I've heard directly from a couple who have been encouraging and gave me good feedback. I've heard a lot of expected hatred and vitriol coming from the mainstream media establishment.
I can change your Zan, so could I. Trust me, we all wish we could.
In Washington, the permanent Washington, the Democratic Party elite, all trotting out the same old tired criticisms that have nothing to do with substance. And this has been part of the problem all along that I talked about in my announcement. Why I've left the party is because this party is now controlled by fanatical ideologues who don't believe in freedom, Sean.
So, the Democratic Party is actually run by cowardly, status quo obsessed liberals who desperately strive for nothing more than to preserve the American people's trust in the system that they very desperately want to keep intact. That's there's no more obvious an example of that than the footage from January 6th of Nancy Pelosi, when she was like talking about how we need to make sure the American people can still trust in the system, that it works after this. And that's what she was worried about. I feel like nothing demonstrates what the Democratic Party's goals are more than that. Now, that doesn't cover every single Democrat. The Democratic Party is the left-wing party in America. If you are left-wing and of anywhere left of center, and you want to see any of your ideas, any of your policies, or anything approximating them brought into existence, Democrats are the only party that you can join or vote for that have any chance of winning whatsoever at all. We are in a two-party system. I don't want to hear any bullshit about third parties. The only left-wing party in America that has any chance of winning. Vote blue no matter who. That is how it works in this country. So for Tulsi Gabbard to claim that the Democratic Party is instead an ideologically driven, leftist, anti-white, woke, whatever the fuck she wants to call it, and whatever the fuck Fox News calls the Democratic Party, when in reality it is a status quo abiding, centrist, at worst, to be fair. There are some pretty left-wing Democrats. Some of the things the Democratic Party stands for, even today, are even somewhat radical policies in America. America's Overton window is pretty far to the right. Not as far as most socialists would lead you to believe, but still pretty far to the right. This is not Tulsi being confused about like the Democrats, they aren't getting anything done. Maybe the Republicans can. I know that Tulsi defenders are going to try to jump to that. This is just Tulsi thinking the Democrat Party fucked her over. They aren't getting anything done. Maybe the Republicans will. The Republicans have been more evidently ghoulish and evil towards every marginalized demographic in America this last year than, frankly, since like the fucking civil rights movement. They haven't pushed this hard against the rights of minorities since the civil rights movement, I feel like. Can you guys think of any time in American history where it's been this overt that Republicans have pushed against the rights of a certain minority group? Maybe when they fought against gay marriage a few years back and are now fighting against it again. But that's the cherry on top of a whole extra pile of anti, insert marginalized group in America, messaging they've been putting out. The Republican Party has been closer to fascism than it's been in a long time. You're wrong about Tulsi? In what way? Come on, Future Farce and Twitch chat. One example. What have I said that's wrong about Tulsi and how? She has always stated her positions clearly. What kind of a non-answer is that? I love how the one person that comes in to defend Tulsi is like, you're wrong about Tulsi. I can convince you. Okay, say one thing she did wrong. She states her opinions clearly, and she's never lied about what she believes. What are you talking about? You're responding to a point that's not been made. This is a very clear goalpost moving and misdirect. So I actually think it's a very good... I'm actually glad that this person commented during this segment, because it's a nice little view into how Tulsi Gabbard fans think. They're not going to be honest. They're not going to be transparent or good faith about what this figure believes, much like trying to debate an Alex Jones defender. They will try to claim, oh, you're misunderstanding this. What they actually meant was this. What she actually meant was that. It is going to be nonstop misrepresented excuses for the figure they need to defend. This is, Internet 101.
They don't believe that we can have different opinions.
Fascists lie about being fascists in a society in which fascist is a bad word? Oh my God! Oh man! Who would have thought fascists would lie? Oh, no. Fascists lying about their opinions? Unthinkable. No, all Nazis, fascists, and racists are Klan hood wearing, swastika tattooed on the neck, out and proud about it, Sieg Heiling and goose stepping down the street with a tiki torch. That is what fascism is, and that is what fascists basically bank on the normies thinking what fascism is. It's why Christchurch and Charlottesville were so destructive to the Gamergate and, not to necessarily Gamergate itself, but to the fascists that were taking advantage of Gamergate to radicalize young edgelords, right? Once it became clear what that was all leading to and what these ideas inevitably led to, it shook the foundations of those communities. Charlottesville hit it hard. Charlottesville was a bad hit to the right-wing, conservative demagogue mouthpiece community during 2016 to 2017, that era, right? Charlottesville was bad. The real nail in the coffin for that era of right-wing politics was Christchurch. A lot of young people who were falling down that rabbit hole saw Christchurch and realized where that path was ending. And sometimes that's all it takes, is knowing where the path of the propaganda naturally leads. Death, genocide, and misery is where their worldview leads. That is the only logical end goal. And when that becomes obvious, when that becomes apparent, because one of these people goes and kills a bunch of people, writes a manifesto, and attributes their motivations to insert ideology or even specific right-wing figure who peddles that ideology, it's a big wake-up call for a lot of people. Christchurch was for a lot of people. The death and rioting at Charlottesville was a big wake-up call to a lot of people. Actually, there were multiple deaths at Charlottesville. Was a big wake-up call to a lot of people. And there were numerous other examples. The San Diego mosque burning, etc. The El Paso one, yeah. These events end up being big wake-up calls to the people that don't realize they're being lied to. Because a lot of the people being lied to out there that are, victims of this propaganda are victims. They don't know better. But one day, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, one day they will. At least a lot of them will.
Opinions. They don't believe that I or you or anyone should have the right to express our views if they disapprove of what those views are. And they
Exactly. That's what the left believes. You are not allowed to have the wrong opinion, and if you express them, then you should die. That is 100%, without a doubt, what every left-wing person stands for. It's not that private corporations that have a TOS that is specifically designed to ensure that there's as little controversy around the platform as possible are just banning accounts that are breaking their TOS because it is a financial incentive to do so, and those accounts signed a agreement when signing on to that private company's platform not to break the rules, and they broke that agreement. That is apparently the left having... By the way, they think big tech is the left. People like this, Tulsi Gabbard, think the left controls big tech, and that the existence of TOS were like, oh, you called a black person the N-word on Twitter. That's bannable. They think that is an example of the left ideologically dominating these platforms, when in reality what it is a pretty simple set of rules that have been put into place to both guarantee these platforms make as much money as possible and to make them as accessible to as many users as possible, making it so that literally every like non-white person or gay person or woman or whatever that joins Twitter is just going to get mobbed up on by misogynists, racists, sexist, homophobes, etc. And just hurled slurs at them. Like, those platforms devolve into Nazi cesspools. Every platform that prides itself on being a moderation-free, free speech platform just ends up being a haven of two things: child pornography and Nazis saying slurs and talking about how much they hate minorities. That's what it always devolves into. Because when you allow those communities to exist, all the normal good people fucking leave out of their own volition. And all that's left are the pieces of shit. So yeah, this is not censorship. This is not the left silencing those they disagree with. These are private corporations upholding the terms that people who signed up to use their private platforms they made, signed to once broken. That is all they're doing, upholding the rules that you've agreed to when you break them.
They will seek to smear us, criticize us, silence us, work with big tech to censor us.
Big tech is controlled by the left. There it is. I can literally run an emulation of this dumb bimbo's brain inside of my own brain without taking... I'm high right now, and I can predict what these stupid motherfuckers think, okay? Their propaganda is through and through the fucking same. The essence of it never changes. On the surface, what they weaponize, what they reference, what they decide to demonize, that will change. But the essence of their argument always comes through to, Republicans are so oppressed because they can't they can't go 5 minutes without calling a minority a slur. Oh, poor Republicans. Oh my God. Oh, poor you. You can't go on Twitter and call every black person you see the N-word? Oh, you can't go on Twitter and call every gay or trans person you see the T slur or the F slur? Oh, poor you. Poor you. Shut the fuck up. Go die then. If you're so mad about it, just go die.
And suppress these God-given freedoms that are enshrined in our Constitution. And the danger of that is...
Go find a hole and simply cease.
When you have a political party that does not believe in freedom, that is in power, they have the ability to use the force of the government and law enforcement to enforce that suppression and that undermining of our freedoms.
In that speech, I paid very...
So, if Tulsi Gabbard actually gave a shit about the undermining of our freedoms, she'd be talking about something like the Patriot Act, which enabled the U.S. government to impede on Americans' privacy more than any bill or policy ever passed in American history. I don't know if you guys are aware, but the Patriot Act to this day is like the thing that allows the government legally to like track your phone calls and where you've been and like find out like who you've been talking to and everything. And people will say like, well, if you have nothing to hide, then you have nothing to worry about. And generally that's true. That's generally true. There's a reason why I'm not particularly worried about like the government spying on what I do. But sometimes it causes problems. And when those problems happen, it's fucking bad. But that's not the kind of thing that Tulsi is going to talk about. There's actually a really good example that I'm going to bring up here, but you'll never hear somebody like Tulsi talking about this, because when they talk about big tech or the government impeding on Americans' privacy and freedoms, they don't actually mean it. They're just trying to spread propaganda. There was a man I can't remember the name of, who during COVID lockdown, his son, his like toddler son, ended up breaking out in a bad rash in like apparently like a pretty private place, right? And since it was COVID and you don't want to take your very young kid to a doctor's office over a rash during a pandemic, the child's father contacts the doctor and asks his son's pediatrician what he should do about the son's rash. The doctor asks, please send a picture of the rash and I will take a look at it. I will prescribe medications, which you will be able to pick up over the counter, and antibiotics, and be able to clear that right up, and it'll be all good. No need for risking your kids' health and safety during the pandemic. The father does what the doctor asked. Takes a picture of his son's rash and sends it to the doctor. The doctor does his job, says, oh, yeah, it's a pretty obvious fungal infection. You're going to want to go ahead and take this antifungal, blah, blah, blah. And, the dad goes to the doctor, picks up the medication, everything's good. Until a few days later, when he gets a notification, a warning on his Google account, that his entire Google account has been locked down and shut down entirely due to suspicious illegal activity. He had his email accounts deleted and all of his accounts affiliated with them, which, if you have accounts on anything these days, you should know is everything. His entire life was deleted because Google, without any thought, their first thought, destroy this man's complete account, and then reported him to the police or to the feds. Knock on the door. Now the feds are investigating him. In the end, he was cleared of any criminal suspicion or charges. Doesn't change the fact to this day, his life was pretty much ruined by that. His life will never recover from that whole ordeal. That is the kind of shit that happens because of the Patriot Act. You will never hear someone like Tulsi Gabbard talking about it, though, because Tulsi Gabbard doesn't give a shit about that guy. All she cares about is weaponizing big tech bad to push her conservative agenda and make more money off of her new grift.
Very close attention to what you were saying.
What's that have to do with the Patriot Act? That was Google? No. The Patriot Act enables the U.S. government, among other... So the Patriot Act was the opening of the floodgates. I'm not 100% sure if the Patriot Act allowed the U.S. government specifically access to that data. From my understanding of the story, Google reported them to the police. Regardless, though, it is a perfect example of why you have nothing to worry about. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about, whatever the saying is, why that is a pretty flawed idea. That I wasn't specifically referencing this being a problem with the Patriot Act, but a problem with the if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about thing. Stories like this are what is happening because of government overreach into people's privacy. Do I think that for every story like that, it's probably saved many lives and saved many people? Sure. But it's still pretty fucked that shit like that happens, doesn't it? Our privacy has gotten a lot more left-leaning. Y'all should check it out. I would hope it has. I've never heard of that subreddit, but sounds pretty based, if that's where it's headed.
Conform or be canceled. Yes. You spoke about the importance of... Do
you guys remember when cancel culture was a thing that only niche right-wing chud YouTubers were talking about? And now you're hearing it on Fox News, and the president and mainstream politicians are talking about it. It really is just the next PC culture. You remember that, right? I don't need to dig up old history for this, right? A couple years ago, what was cancel culture was called political correctness culture. Political correctness, abbreviated to PC culture, is a term used to describe language, policies, or measures that are intended to avoid offensive or disadvantage to members of particular groups in society. In public discourse and the media, the term is generally used as a pejorative with an implication that these policies are excessive or unwarranted. Since the late 1980s, the term has been used to describe a preference for inclusive language and avoidance of language behavior that can be seen as excluding, marginalizing, or insulting to groups of people disadvantaged or discriminated against, particularly groups defined as by ethnicity, sex, gender, or sexual orientation. The phrase politically correct first appeared in the 1930s. Yeah. Anyway, oh wow, that's actually really cool. The phrase politically correct first appeared in the 1930s when was used to describe dogmatic adherence to ideology in authoritarian regimes such as Nazi Germany and Soviet Russia. Anyway, PC culture was this idea that the left was attacking anybody who dared to speak out against the lockstep ideas that they enforce, and that like the LGBT can't, like, now they call it cancel culture, the PC culture Gestapo, or I guess the character that's perfectly describes it is South Park's PC principal. Like, there really is no better way to describe how the internet and broader culture viewed the left than this character right here. The brash, politically correct guy that attacks and assaults anybody that dares to say anything unwoke. This was literally just the 2016 version of cancel culture. It's the same thing, the same overblown narrative that we now look back on as being ridiculous to complain about, but with a new title, a new name, and a whole group of disenfranchised, politically unaware teenage white boys, for the most part, that desperately feel as though there's some attack against them, but now there's a whole new name for it. It's the same thing. It's the same exact thing. Cancel culture and PC culture is the same thing. The right has just changed the name for it.
Defending what it means to be a woman. You talked about those that deny biological differences between a man and a woman are not only erasing women as a category of people, but they are denying...
What he means by that is, she said that trans women are not women. That is what she said. What they're wording that as is, acknowledging the biological differences. Isn't it interesting how they can't direct quote what she said? What she said was that trans women are not true women. And that they will never be. And that it is hurting, quote unquote, real women to consider them such. Interesting. How they won't actually quote what she actually said. It has to be some vague, much more agreeable, the Bailey to the Mott version. Like, the Mott is what she actually said. The Bailey is what they end up wording. The thing that, the thing she supposedly got canceled for after the fact during the Hugbox copium huffing session that she's going to have on Fox News here.
The existence of objective reality and truth. And you even went further, and you have woke politicians and a Supreme Court justice who are unable and unwilling.
People still defend Tulsi Gabbard as being a left-wing figure, by the way. And here she is just nodding her head to Fox News. This is literally the type of shit that would be in a quartering video 2 years ago. Talking about how woke culture and cancel culture and yada yada. Like, how the fuck is anyone still claiming that Tulsi Gabbard is left-wing in any capacity?
To define what a woman is or defend women's sports when female athletes object to competing against
a woman is the friends we made along the way.
Biological males. You thought long, hard, and deeply about these positions before you did this. So what is the reaction to that? Because I would imagine in this woke world, probably that sparked a lot of backlash and anger also.
It sparked a lot of backlash and anger from...
Dude, they're so desperate to feel like victims. Like, it doesn't work as well for Tulsi because I think she's POC, right? But like, I feel like every white conservative dude desperately wishes that they were a minority so that they could feel oppressed. They want so badly to be oppressed. It really, like, it's always been the through line, is the you are oppressed, feel, you should, like, here, actually, I bring this video up very often. The first ever PragerU video I ever saw was this video, The War on Boys. I saw it when I was like 15 or 16 years old or something like that. I was pretty young when I saw it. And you better believe my teenage white boy ass loved seeing this woman, this grown woman, explain to me why I'm actually oppressed and why actually the scales have flipped these days. Women have the upper hand. They not only control sex, but they also have all the power. They got that pussy pass where they can just hit men and say whatever they want to a man and not get hurt. All that yada yada incel bullshit, right? The same shit Andrew Tate is now spewing, right? Nothing's changed. On top of all of that, getting to hear a woman explain to me how actually I'm oppressed is just the best. It's just the best when you're a conservative, edgy, politically disaffected white boy. Listen to this. Can you just imagine how many, like, conservative chud dudes slow-stroked it to this video?
Being a normal boy is a serious liability in today's classroom. Boys tend to be disorganized and restless. Some have even been known to be noisy and hard to manage. Sound like any boy you know? But increasingly, our schools have little patience for what only a couple of decades ago would have been described as boyishness. As psychologist Michael Thompson has aptly observed, girls' behavior is the gold standard in schools. Boys are treated like defective girls.
So all of this is literally insane bullshit. But if you're like a teenage white boy who knows nothing about the world, and all you know is that like the teenage girls in your class that like won't have sex with you in your high school class, and you feel like all your like male counterparts are getting their virginities lost before you, like you start to gain this entitlement, and it's like none of them are telling the truth. And it's not a big deal to lose your virginity in high school or even after that. Like they get obsessed with this entitlement to something they feel like everyone else around them is experiencing, all the other guys around them are experiencing, losing their virginity, and that the women in their class it's usually, these guys are usually in middle school, high school. I think it's pretty safe to say. They feel like these girls in their class, their peers, are like the gatekeepers of this life-changing, like, turn them into a real man experience. They feel as though women are keeping them from being a real man. They feel personally attacked, like they don't consent to these women not consenting to them losing their virginity. That is how they feel. That is the genuine thought process of a lot of like the entitlement of these incel dudes. And I know this because I've spent a lot of time in their communities, and at one point, I was a shitty entitled teenage boy. And I didn't think exactly like that, but I was damn close. I could see how I'd get there. I know how I'd get there. I almost did. And I'm glad I didn't. But I think it's important to take the lessons I learned from that kind of thing and apply it here. Tulsi Gabbard is doing exactly that. She's trying to, both because, you know, she's a woman of color, but also because she's a large conservative figure, push the right and particularly straight cishet white men, whatever the fuck, are being oppressed by this woke cancel culture mob.
The expected places from these very same...
If you're a conservative Fox News watching white man, you are supposed to have your cock out, rock hard, slow stroking it to this entire segment, and lubricating your stroking with your own tears, because these guys just need to feel oppressed. They need to be the underdogs fighting this overwhelming evil that has taken over. But in reality, they are the overwhelming evil that has taken over. They don't know it yet.
So-called woke fanatical ideologues that are in control of today's Democratic Party. But Sean, I also want to share that I got a lot of messages from both people I know, but even more from...
Just learned that I'm a white man, SMH. To be clear, this experience does not apply like exclusively to like young teenage cishet white men or whatever. Like people of color, women, LGBT and gender nonconforming people are all just as like, maybe not just as, but certainly not immune to the propaganda. In fact, there are specific tailored forms of this exact propaganda meant to appeal to these marginalized groups. There is femcel propaganda that is specifically meant to appeal to women, particularly women who have been sexually assaulted or raped. A lot of the femcel propaganda is directed towards them, and it is literally just sexist, misandrous propaganda, and a lot of them end up becoming TERFs. A lot of the women who were once raped or sexually assaulted by most likely shitty conservative men, if we're being honest, end up siding with the same type of dudes just to shit on trans women, because they perceive trans women to be the real threat. Whether it's because of some diluted, trauma-based idea that penis equals harassment and pain and sexual assault, or because they've been brainwashed into it. It really is ironic how often the same time, yeah, J.K. Rowling, someone who talked about in her TERF manifesto how she was a victim of sexual assault, siding with and defending the very same institutions that currently view. I think this is still the case in the UK, by the way. I hope they've changed it. Correct me if they have, but I believe they haven't. Last I checked, in the UK, rape, R-A-P-E, rape, legally requires penetration, which means that a cis woman having penis-vagina sex with a man unconsensually would not qualify as rape, legally in the UK. They may have changed this recently, but I know as of 2017 that was true. It may still be categorized sexual assault, but it is rape and should be seen as such. The victim has to be penetrated in the UK, at least as the law goes, for it to be considered rape. This also makes it so that two cis women that are lesbians, if there's no penetration involved, a cis woman can rape another cis woman and get away with it. Well, not get away with it, but it wouldn't be considered rape. It would be considered sexual assault. Penetration by penis specifically, dildos don't count. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. It specifically, the law in the UK specifically says for it to be rape, it has to be penis. Dildos don't even count. Fingers don't count. So it is only a man or a trans woman or like an NB with a penis or whatever. Like you have to have a penis to commit rape in the UK legally. These are the institutions that J.K. Rowling is defending as a victim of sexual assault, all to own the transes. Their priorities are clear.
People I've never met from across
I'm going hard tonight.
this country who expressed hope in their reaction, who felt
I feel like I'm on a roll tonight, guys. Like I like my brain's chugging right now. I feel like a lot of examples of the points I'm trying to make are coming to mind, you know? Sometimes I have a hard time remembering examples of the of like the points that I'm making, right? Examples that support my point. But tonight I feel like they're all coming to me immediately.
emboldened and inspired that they too don't have to self-censor and cower in the corner for fear of being canceled or smeared or losing their job. They've created this culture of fear. We need more people to step up. If we believe in our freedom of...
What they're talking about, by the way, is they want to create a society in which there is no social stigma against being a bigot. They're not talking about some laws that are taking away their freedom of speech. They're simply talking about social consequences to being a bigot. They are mad that people are mad that they are bigots. That is all that this is. There is no solution to the supposed problem they're bringing up. What is the solution? To pass some legislation so that private companies can't ban people anymore? Enjoy Twitter being infested with even more pedophiles and literally every single marginalized person leaving the platforms because they can't go anywhere without being called a slur. Get ready for that. These companies would go bankrupt. Twitter would be a fraction of the size it was if it actually got rid of its TOS. This would never happen, of course. Actually putting down a law that legislating it so that, sorry, I'm having a hard time wording this. Pushing legislation that would take away the right for private corporations to ban bigots, homophobes, transphobes, racists, etc., would not only be unconstitutional, because these private corporations are run by private people and shareholders who have, in our beautiful capitalist nation, the right to determine whether or not they want to allow fucking bigots on their platform. Not only would it be unconstitutional and anti-American, it would literally go against the very concept of the American dream, to be able to have your own unimpeded, unregulated by the government platform that you can build for speaking and whatnot. This would literally be the government controlling what you can and cannot say, is what that would be for private corporations. Mandating you're not allowed to make your own private platform with a specific set of rules. That is literally against freedom of speech and expression. But they don't care about that. The world that they want is just one in which they can harass as many minorities as they want and spread as much hate propaganda as they want without any social responsibility or social consequences whatsoever. They're literally just mad that lefties get offended by them being bigots. There is literally no other explanation to this.
Of speech, we have to step up and use it and go out and vote accordingly in this next election, which is why I've invited Democrats who feel as sickened as I do about today's Democratic Party, leave, move forward, and put our country first.
Let's talk a little bit more about you.
How I left the left. Trust me, I'm definitely left-wing. Don't look at my history and everything that I've said up to this point, though. Don't look at that, which clearly denotes that I've always been a conservative, and I'm just claiming to have been a left-winger to grift off of the very well-known financial easy ride that you can get from claiming that you were once on the left, but you realize the left is evil, and now you're a Republican. Ha-ha! That shit's an easy grift. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows what she's doing. I wouldn't be surprised if most of the people on the right know what she's doing.
You and what led up to this decision, and how do you now define yourself politically, and do you have political ambitions moving forward?
I am an independent, and
how is Sean Hannity not dead yet? I'm not this isn't a bit, and I'm not joking. How is he not dead of old age yet? Does he have a phylactery somewhere? I feel like this guy's been an old, conservative Fox News ghoul since I was a fucking child. Xanderhall, because there's no God? That's definitely a good argument for there being no God. Sean Hannity's existence. Unless, of course, if there is a hell and he goes there, and we get if there's a heaven and a hell, and in heaven, there's a spot where it's like a glass bottom boat that you can walk on, and you just get to look down through the glass floor down at hell, and you get to see all the worst people in history, that both in your time before and after, for all eternity, just suffering and being tortured. That would be pretty cool. If that's what happens, maybe there is a God. Even if Sean Hannity exists in the mortal world, maybe then. Let's cross our fingers, guys.
And I am focused on two main things. It is continuing to fight for the freedoms that are under attack in this country and continuing to hold our leaders' feet to the fire. President Biden and his allies in Congress who are pushing us to the brink of nuclear war, placing our future, the future of...
He's only 60? Oh my God. He's only 60? His neck and his head have merged into one entity. You know those thumb men from the Spy Kids movie? Where, they have a body, a torso body with, the thumb hands and legs, but their head and their neck is just, torso, and then thumb begins, and it's just one, thumb head? His neck and his head have formed that, right? There is no real, start and end to his neck and head, because his giblets... That's all I can call them, like turkey giblets or whatever. His giblets, the loose skin has kind of formed this this thumb type head and neck feature for his whole look. It's quite interesting. He is in fact one of the Spy Kids thumb men.
What led up to this decision, and how do you...
continuing to fight for the freedoms that are under attack in this country. And continuing to hold
thank you,
our
Tulsi.
leaders' feet to the
thank
fire.
you so much.
President Biden and
let
his
me give
allies
you
in
more
Congress
money.
who are pushing us to the brink of nuclear war, placing our future, the future of the American
You're
people,
so brave.
humanity, and the world at risk. These are the things that I'm asking voters to consider as they go towards the polls, because if we do nothing, if we just stand by and allow President Biden to continue to push us over the brink of nuclear war, we may not see a tomorrow or a next month or a next year. These are the most important things right now.
I know people have criticized you for your comments about what is happening in Ukraine and Vladimir Putin, et cetera. Vladimir Putin now is bombing civilian targets indiscriminately.
You can already see the eye rolling in Tulsi's face. All right, let's hear the Russia defense. Okay, so what do you guys think it's going to be? Hold on, let me take a nice hit of weed and run my emulation of Tulsi's brain in my brain really fast. I want to remind you guys, I don't pre-watch shit. I haven't seen this. I'm literally just guessing. I'm watching this for the first time with you guys. I'm running my emulation. Okay. Here's my prediction. Tulsi's going to make one or both of these 2 points, okay? One, she's going to say, well, you know, there's a lot of stuff out there about what's going on with Russia and Ukraine, and I'm not 100%, I don't know if like a lot of that's true. I think that, you know, Putin, NATO promised, the West promised this with NATO, and they broke this agreement with Russia, and, you know, a lot of the people in this land want to be, like, it'll be that defense of Russia, like, oh, yada, NATO bad, and, like, Russia's okay. And then, or we'll get, oh, and Ukraine's not perfect either. The Azov battalion, Nazis, the bridge bombing, yada, yada, yada. I guarantee we're getting one or both of those two, okay? I can literally run an emulation in these people's brains. There is no way in hell Tulsi is about to say, I honestly think that what Putin is doing in Ukraine is awful. My heart goes out to the Ukrainian people. I hope that as few civilians as possible are harmed by Putin's war crimes that he is committing. He is targeting civilians, and it is nightmarish. The videos that have come out, the Bucha Street massacre is just one that comes to mind. There were women and children, civilians that were tied up and shot in the street. Young women are being raped by Russian soldiers that are occupying these Ukrainian towns. I have a feeling she's not going to do some I have a feeling she's not about to explain why Russia is doing horrible things and like explain why Ukraine is being is justified in defending themselves against this invasion. Pretty sure we're about to get one of those 2 examples I brought up of Russia apologia.
Killing innocent men, women, and children. And I would argue first that it should be Western Europe's problem more than ours. They're not a member of NATO.
They're not a member of NATO yet. They wanted to be, and they were actively trying to join. Russia is doing this to prevent it. You actual fucking ghoul. Wow, that's even more cowardly than defending Russia. Oh yeah, it's bad, but that should be Europe's problem. Leave that up to, they're not even in NATO. Leave it up to, fuck right off. We literally have NATO. Okay, you absolute buffoon, you absolute small-minded, small Russia-defending, smooth marble brain. There's a slug inside your skull. Your brain is a slug. There's a little pink slug just going, woo, just going all around inside your little skull cavity, and that is your brain, my friend. Because if you look at a map, you can see Russia touches Ukraine. And then Ukraine... Oh, do you guys know what Ukraine touches? NATO territory. If Russia takes Ukraine, Russia and NATO are now touching. And that's a problem. Ukraine also wanted to join NATO and still does. Like, if Ukraine is taken, that literally puts NATO in a worse position. Russia has a foothold even closer to NATO territories. What is it, Poland? That's right on the border of Ukraine? It's either like Poland or... I'm not very good with European geography. These are literally fantasy. I literally know the geography of Middle-earth and Valinor and Balerion better than I know the geography of Europe, okay? There would be an insurgency in Ukraine. It would cause destabilization in the territory. It would literally be a case of civil war happening in the region for the next decade at least. There's so many reasons why what he just said is fucking stupid, and why Western powers, NATO, and the US have every single reason to be offering lethal aid and other forms of support, even boots in the ground support if they decide to, for Ukraine fighting Russia. There are many fucking reasons. But obviously, there's no reason for Sean Hannity to acknowledge them. He's a mouthpiece for Russia, just as every Republican is.
Ukraine. And now he's threatening nuclear weapons. So my question to you is, what should America's role in the world be when you have a hostile actor, a thug, and a murderer of innocent women and children, in this case, Putin? What should the world's reaction?
Very rare Sean Hannity W. To be fair, it's not a lot to ask for him to denounce the murdering tyrant, but I did just say that he's a mouthpiece for Putin. So I take that back. I stand corrected.
reaction be, and what should America's reaction be? How should do we stand by and say that's your problem, or do we have a moral obligation to say we're not going to let anybody kill innocent men, women, and children?
Well, first I'll say President Biden has been enacting policies and actions that have further escalated this war, rather than exercising the opportunity and responsibility that he has as the President of the United States to work to bring these parties together, de-escalate, and come to a negotiated, peaceful solution. Now,
holy shit, it's even more cowardly. You see, Biden has been helping Ukraine fight back against the invasion, which is actually reducing the ability for these countries to come to peace with each other. Bitch, Russia's invading and killing civilians and they're defending themselves. You don't, like, if someone breaks into your house and tries to kill you, you don't lay on the ground and say, hi, I am unarmed and I am laying here and you could totally kill me. I'm totally allowing it right now. I will not fight back. I just don't want to escalate the situation. I feel like the best way to deal with this is to de-escalate the situation. I'm just laying here completely disarmed. I put my gun down. In fact, here, have my gun. Have my gun. Here you go. Go ahead and take everything you please. Like, what are you fucking talking about?
some will say, well, Tulsi, that's impossible, or that's naive to think about.
Yes. No, it's not naive. It's just downright fucking stupid. It's actually embarrassing that a 50-something-year-old woman who has like an entire, like, more than my entire lifetime's worth of experience in politics, if I'm pretty sure, to say something so fucking dumb. Guys, I'm not sure if you're aware of this. My knowledge of political foreign policy shit starts a couple years ago. I didn't start even researching or learning about or getting into foreign policy until I started doing politics on YouTube. I've got like 3 years of experience under my belt, and somehow I know that appeasement is not a strategy that is going to work in this situation better than Tulsi does, unless Tulsi's a lying grifter who's just saying whatever will get her the most money and support. Which do you guys think? Which do you guys think? A cowardly supporter of Russia, or just too cowardly, or just cowardly grifting to the widest possible audience? If Ukraine wasn't being armed by America and Europe, then they would still have an insurgency. The bloodshed would still not stop until the Russian army is pushed out, and the fast way is with a fuck ton of javelins. Yeah, like, to be clear, if Russia won, like, Russia literally took all of Ukraine, like, everything was taken, Ukraine would literally be in headlines every week for, like, insurgencies and bombings and terror attacks or whatever, and like attempted rebellions and civil wars for the next 15 to 20 years. It would literally be one of the world conflicts going on nonstop for the next decade plus if Russia actually won. There would be no scenario in which Russia takes over and then that just becomes a new peaceful region of Russia. That's just not something that happens. That's not going to happen if Russia wins. It will be nonstop bloodshed in that region for decades.
Point those people back to the words that President Kennedy gave.
We can have a dialogue about it. If you look at it, though,
Oh my God, even Sean Hannity interrupted her because she was defending Russia too much. Even Sean Hannity was like, whoa, okay. Even I, like, started this by saying he's murdering innocent people and that this, like, okay.
He invaded a sovereign country.
Yes.
He's claiming it to be his own. If anyone said Hawaii is ours, I know it's your home.
Just sit there and take it, Tulsi. Just sit there and take it. That's what you're here for. You're getting paid for this. You're getting paid to do this.
State, I don't think you would like that, and you would want America to come defend you, wouldn't you?
Well, Hawaii.
Isn't she like in some portion like part indigenous Hawaiian or something? I know she's from Hawaii, but does she have any like actual like indigenous Hawaiian in her genes? Because it feels like that was like more than just, oh, it's the state you're from. No, she's Hindi. I don't know why, but somebody told me she was like indigenous Hawaiian, like half or something. But it wasn't from a very solid source. It was from a friend in Discord. So, is that true? Is she actually Hindi? Wait, hold on. All right, we gotta look up. Tulsi Gabbard's ancestry results. Actually, that sounds like a bad idea. Let's not do that.
Hawaii is a part of the United States, so yes, that would be a problem.
I changed my mind.
By the way, one of the nicest parts of the United States, and you're separate and apart. I don't blame you. But do we? In other words, once somebody invades a country and kills innocent men, women, and children, does the world have an obligation to stop it early? Or do you give in to nuclear blackmail? Somebody could just say, oh, I'm going to nuke you if you dare support.
Listen, guys, I don't think the nukes happen. I think the U.S. could have boots in the ground, soldiers out there launching Javelin missiles at Russian tanks, and I don't think Putin launches the nukes. That's the end of everything if he does. But then again, well, it's hard to say. The way that there's no chance in fuck nuclear war happens, mainly because it's the most conceptually terrifying thing. The problem is that there's so many like safeguards in the way, right? So for the US, I think it's actually pretty damn easy for like Biden to hit the button on the nuclear football, put in the codes in the nuclear football, which is literally a briefcase that's like never more than 5 feet away from the president or something like that. And he can literally always just pull that motherfucker out and be like, nuke time. Like there's nothing that stops him. Russia, however, correct me if I'm wrong, their system is different. There's one guy, one motherfucker who like finds out whether or not like, oh, where nukes have been launched. War has been waged. It's time. Calls up the Kremlin and says, "Here, comrade, it is time to launch the nukes. The filthy Americans they have attacked us." Like that happens, right? There are a few lines that have to get in between, some tyrant hitting a button and the world ending, right? There's a few. I feel like it's a lot less likely than people think. It's definitely likely and possible and probable, but like, I don't know if it's as likely as people think.
Ukraine or whatever country it happens to be.
The path that we are on has been escalating and making this war worse.
I'm not asking that part.
Increased. But
He's getting roasted. He's actually going hard on her. She literally won't answer the question. And Sean Hannity is pushing her.
You got to let me answer. You got to let me answer here, Sean.
Obligation is. Because I have a hard time.
The president. Okay, so if the moral obligation is to do what we can to end the suffering of the Ukrainian people who are
extraordinarily rare, Sean Hannity W.
are suffering death and destruction, it is to bring about an end to this war as quickly as possible. President Biden has failed to do that, and he has failed the American people, the people of Ukraine, and the world in doing that.
Tulsi Gabbard, thank you. We appreciate it.
Wow. What a non-answer. Yeah, it's all a grift. The grift continues onward. You have to be ready for the nozzle vortex, okay? It's gonna happen, all right? If you think it's big now, it's only gonna grow. The nozzle shit should be, without a doubt, the scariest potential right-wing movement to people on the left. I'll explain why. It does a really good job, at least to stupid people that mean well, of making right-wing and fascistic ideas look palatable, and perhaps even progressive. Very, very good at it. The whole anti-big tech thing, to someone who's left-wing and doesn't know better, can really come off as like some pro-worker, anti-big company, big corporation, leftist idea, right? There are no doubt leftists out there that are vulnerable to this type of propaganda, that do not know better. And the biggest problem is that they also weave in the populism, right? So right now, if you're an American, left or right, maybe not right, definitely left, you definitely feel like the Democratic Party, your party, the one that's like the only chance to have a win that represents even a fraction of your ideas, is pretty shit. You probably don't feel great about the Democrat Party, right? And so chances are you're like, fuck the Democratic Party. Why can't they be better? Why do they have to be so milquetoast? Why do they have to be so bad at doing their job and just getting the policies that the American people want passed? Why do they constantly lose to the Republicans because they aren't willing to play as dirty as they do? You know, all these complaints. If those are the complaints you have about the Democratic Party, those are the same complaints that nozzles will appropriate to push their ideology. And once they've gotten you on board with all of the mutual complaints about the Democratic Party, how it doesn't do enough, yada, 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 what's the alternative? Oh, well, the Republicans and the Trump train, the populist movement on the right against these lazy, no-good Democrats, pushing against big tech, these large corporations that are not only, if you're a lefty, hurting the workers, but if you're a right-winger, pushing an evil left-wing woke narrative and destroying your rights and your freedom of speech. It's very insidious and effective propaganda. You guys need to be ready for it. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more from me, consider dropping a like. It really helps out my videos, my VODs, and whatnot a lot more than you even realize. And of course, if you want to see more from me on YouTube, you can always hit that subscribe button and ring the bell icon to turn on all notifications so YouTube actually tells you when I go live or upload a new video. And of course, if you want to follow my social medias so you can see more from me on the internet in general, they are all linked down below in the description, including my Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, fan Discord, etc. And of course, finally, if you want to support me financially, directly, help to contribute to the white name genocide, etc., you can do so quite easily by donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or even financially supporting me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, or even Patreon. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.